today's video is answering some questions that I received on a comment from the lovely Gladys. And Gladys wanted to know, how did I come into coloring? Did I come into coloring with a art background? How did I learn? How long did it take me? And what did I use to learn adult coloring? And I just felt that answering these questions on a text was going to just take so much longer than if I did a video. So I thought I would come up here and just color in a work while I just share my some more of my journey. So I don't have any art experience or an art background. In primary school, the only art I was exposed to was the art in my homeschooling curriculum. We're looking at back to the 90s, and at that time my family lived in rural Mozambique, so I was homeschooled, and the curriculum that my parents put us on had some art built into it, but just very basic. So I did that. I experimented a little bit with basic watercolors and coloring in. I also taught myself how to sketch using pictures of dogs and cats that we had in books. It was a specific subscription my parents actually took out when we were younger, and it was all about animals and nature, and inside the subscription we had sections on endangered animals or pets. I would usually try and sketch with just general graphite pencils the dogs and the cats, or the puppies and the kittens. And I learned the difference between an HB pencil and H pencils or the B pencils, and I would then teach myself how to use them to create the different shadings and blend them accordingly. And I was about 11 or so at that time. When we moved to South Africa, when we moved back and I spent my teen years in South Africa, I still didn't go for art lessons. Life just didn't provide that sort of opportunity. So fast forward to 2020, when I took adult coloring up as a hobby, the world had changed. I mean, we had basically YouTube tutorials, we had the power of the internet and social media, and by this time I taught myself how to take what I understood with graphite pencils and sketching and try to interpret that or transfer it into colored pencils. Now, that was back in 2013, and I did okay. I mean, if I look back at what I drew with colored pencils to what I do in coloring books now, I can see how I've changed and grown. And most of that is because I went online and I would watch tutorials, and I taught myself how to do adult coloring. So how long did it take me to go from only knowing a little bit to knowing what I know now? Well, in all honesty, it's still an ongoing process. It's taken me almost 3 years, and in that time I've learned what I've learned. I can color at the level that I can color now, and in 5 years' time I will look back on what I'm doing now and be able to see the growth as well. So I don't think that one can put a finite sort of time frame to growing and all of that. I mean, if you want to become an artist, I think, you know, typically one would be doing art in school and have an interest, be exploring arts. Now, I didn't do art exams. I didn't even study art in uni, and to be honest with you, I really would have loved to have gone and studied art and developed that sort of skill set earlier on than what I have. But I don't feel that that is a prerequisite. I think you can learn to be artistic and color and all of that just by being open to learning. And then from that it grows and it comes. But some concepts, like you take skin or hair or even light source, some of those concepts can be really tricky to get your head around. So they require time and patience and just embarking on a journey. So this leads me to the third and final question. What did I use to learn? Well, I went on to YouTube and Facebook, and I found adult coloring Facebook groups, and from there I started to notice people had YouTube channels, and I would go exploring. One of the first things I did was take a master class by Coloring Book Cafe, and I started up with that and started just with the basics, you know, very, very basics. Taking 3 pencils in the same shade, a dark, a light, and a medium, and placing my dark, learning how to place the dark bits and where to place the highlights. And then from there I would go on to YouTube channels like Color My World, and I remember the one video I watched on Color My World's YouTube channel. She spoke about how when you want to learn something, find the thing you want to learn and then color loads of those examples. So for instance, let's say I want to learn how to do glassware. Find out how to color glass and then go and color glass multiple times until it's kind of like ingrained and you've got it. And then go on to the next thing. Maybe it's like stones, how to color stones, and go and color a whole lot of stones until you can do that really well, and then move on. And I found that really, really helpful. So that's what I did. And I still do. If I don't know how to color something, I will go onto YouTube, and I don't care if it's a coloring channel or if it's realism art. I will go and I will find what I am looking for, and I will learn, and then I will study it and see, okay, where are they placing those dark shadows? Where are they placing the highlights? What sort of stroke are they using? Are they going round and round in circles, or are they going in little ups and downs? And I learned from Color My World that sped up videos, some of these videos are really sped up, and it's actually, they don't show you what kind of technique the person is doing. So I tried to focus more on the image and how the image was changing to get an idea on what the artist or the colorist was doing. And that's how I began to grow. If I couldn't find a YouTube tutorial, I would then look for the picture, the coloring page already completed by someone else, and I would go and see how did other people do it and try and find the idea I had in my head and see what someone else with more experience had done. And sometimes that worked and other times it didn't. But overall, that was the approach that I used. I did follow Zucchini Kitty's channel quite a bit. I'm still one of her subscribers. And I watched how she colored and, you know, began to learn from that as well. And just watching people coloring in really helped a lot. Then things like Chris Cheng and her hair and skin tutorials, I would never have the same coloring page, but I would watch what she did, and I would try and find a picture that sort of matched the angle of the face. And I would pull out my pencils, and I would follow the color along in that sort of fashion, and go from there. And slowly but surely, with time, my confidence would grow, and I would carry on trying things. And eventually I began to see that in whether it's art or adult coloring, this whole thing about darks on lights. So wherever there's dark, there'll be a light bit sitting on the dark. And I began to really study people's pictures and notice what it was that I liked about what they were doing. And I began to look at mine and go, okay, well, those pictures I really like, they have very deep colors, so let me work on that. And you know, I do a lot of layering, and I learned just by watching that layering up, creating those rich tonal values, really helps the image really pop. I didn't understand color theory very well for quite a while, and it does show in some of my older pictures where I've got colors that just stand out and don't seem to make sense. So I would every now and then get it in my head to go watch videos on color theory, and I'd watch from that and see, okay, so analogous means, you know, this page here is analogous. I've got blue, red, and purple, so that will work. And I can use blacks and browns because that's tying it in. There's a more neutral colors. So I began to get my head around that. But you know, when it comes to things like light source, oh my gosh, I'd say that's taken me probably about 2 years to just kinda get my head around it. And I'm still struggling with that because I don't always know how far down the light source goes and how much must I reflect the light. Where do I reflect it? How do I make it realistic? Realism is another thing. I've been on and off working towards that for 3 years, but because I don't work on it seriously, it gets a bit tedious and boring to be so slow. You know, I sometimes get bored and I just want to color in and not faff too much about realism. So, you know, I'll dip in and out. And that's kind of been my process of teaching myself adult coloring, is just listening to myself, finding out who I am and how I like to color, what makes sense to me, what am I interested in learning, what do I want to challenge myself in, and then watching other people who know how to do that and learning from them, and then not putting a time frame on myself, but just giving myself patience and grace to be as slow or as fast as it takes. And sometimes I'll get something really quickly, but like light source, for instance, there was a good 18 months where I had to tell myself not to even think about it or worry about it because I just couldn't get my head around it. I would say even hair is something that I need to work on because I'm not convinced that I'm doing hair quite right. I think I've got the idea of it, but the execution needs work. So, you know, I also do a lot of self-analyzing, which is tricky to balance with because we can also be our worst critics. So yeah, I hope that this is helpful. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions. I'm always happy to answer your questions. If I can't answer them with a text, I'm happy to do short little videos like this just to answer you and take the time to give you well thought out answers. Let me know in the comments your process. How have you learned to color in? What channels do you like to watch? And how what works best for you. Do you prefer to work things out on your own? Do you prefer color alongs and tutorials? Sometimes it's also a matter of just growing slowly and taking the time. Some people like to color only with markers until they feel confident and settled in that before they move on to pencils. And some people never move on to pencils, or vice versa. So yeah, if I was to give you a quick tip, it would be to just be true to you and grow at your own pace with the mediums that you feel most comfortable with, and develop different mediums as and when you are ready, and enjoy the process. So thank you so much, Gladys, for these amazing questions. I hope that this video has been helpful to you. Do let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. So take care, everyone. Bye for now.